There's not a lot of information available about this video, besides that it was broadcast live somewhere in Albania. Two radio personalities are having a spirited discussion when suddenly they are interrupted by something that neither of them can explain.
Pjesa më e madhe janë pushim dhe po e shijojnë dhe një ditë mrekullueshme që është për jashtë.
Profesor!
Wow.
Ç'është?
Ç'është kjo?
A newspaper flies up on its own in the middle of their conversation, and you don't have to speak the language to see the genuine surprise written all over the man's face as it happens. Still, I would really appreciate it if anyone who speaks Albanian could tell me what was being said, or tell me more about their show if you recognize them. I've watched this video many times, and I see no strings attached to the newspaper or anything like that. Obviously, it can't be magnets either. So if it's not magnets or string, then what could it possibly be besides a haunting? Catholics honor the departed on November 2nd with All Souls Day, praying for the souls of their departed family and friends, often with visits to the graveyard. But what happens when the soul hasn't crossed over? Published by Own Vlogs, these paranormal investigators visited a haunted graveyard in order to answer that question. As the crew wanders around the cemetery's open graves, they suddenly see this vague pale figure in the distance. After glancing over several times at the figure, the men get too scared by its stillness and start running off.
कुछ चीज है तो हावी होने की कोशिश कर रही है पर ये क्या खड़े हो जाओ निकलो यहाँ से स्पीड से थोड़ा सा ये क्या
Gathering some courage, they turn and look back. The figure is still there. They run off again and straight out of the cemetery. Was this a soul that hadn't yet crossed over? Or just a graveyard statue? In any event, this is one scary video that went horribly wrong.
रास्ते में खड़ी है ये जो भी है रास्ते में यार अरे भाई इधर से निकल भाई इधर
YouTube team Procura Sobrenatural is exploring this haunted house when they encounter something cryptic. See if you can spot it. A dark figure appears in the next room. It's unclear if it's escaping them or watching them. Later, they hear a sharp snapping noise. It's hard to tell what that is. Maybe a shot from a pellet gun? Did this sound come from the dark figure we saw slinking away? I think it's quite possible, which makes me question whether that was a shadow figure or something alive. Mr. Mom, from the country of Jordan, decides to take ghost hunting to the next level and installs a camera in an abandoned house. This is where the Abla is said to haunt, which means crazy older sister. It isn't long before the scary woman is caught on camera doing some really weird things. It looks like it could just be a lone hermit, but then the chair starts scraping along beside her, moving all by itself, or so it seems. Something tells me that it's tied around to a string around her foot. Now that I've said something, I bet you'll notice the object only moves when she does. Here's another strange basement video that doesn't seem to have any good explanation besides the paranormal. A YouTuber named David's Ghost Cams has recently installed a brand new smoke and carbon monoxide detector that seems to be acting quite strangely. First of all, it only goes off when he is downstairs. Second, it tells him that the carbon monoxide levels are at 0%, which means it shouldn't be going off at all. Finally, it tells him to get out of his home.
Okay, so we're gonna go downstairs and I'm going to show you what happened the other night.
Look what happens as soon as he steps foot in the basement.
Carbon monoxide is
Keep in mind that this alarm has not gone off since the last time he went downstairs. There's obviously no smoke to speak of. This, combined with other weird happenings, has David convinced that his basement is quite haunted. David explains that he once had a house guest who stayed in the basement over 3 months before taking his life. Everyone was surprised. Ever since then, David has noticed things in the house moving around by themselves, strange noises, and most recently, the faulty smoke alarm. Even stranger is that how, as soon as David starts talking about the smoke alarm again, it goes off on its own for a second time. The only explanation I have for this video is that somehow David is manually testing the smoke detector himself and blaming it on a ghost as a prank. However, all of the smoke detectors I've ever seen requires you to physically press a button. This one really does seem to be going off all by itself. This brings me to an interesting point. If David's house guest was a friend, then why would he be telling him to leave his home? Perhaps there is some sort of danger. Perhaps he is trying to warn David of a gas leak or an impending fire. I guess only time will tell. Listen closely, you might not be hearing things. Posted to the Chills Narrator subreddit, the Redditor explains that she was home alone with her daughter, watching a kid's show when she heard an old man clearing his throat and speaking in the background of the video she was filming.
Come on.
Many others in the thread hear the voice too, with Redditor temperamental elements saying it sounds like the man says, "What?" The Redditor asks, "Do you have any male relatives that have passed? Maybe they're back to see your baby girl." Boss said that the child's great-grandpa had passed away a little over a year ago. Perhaps great-grandpa is reaching out. Should they reach back? This clip was submitted to the Chills Narrator subreddit and was originally uploaded to YouTube by Hunting the Unknown. As the team investigates the haunted insane asylum, they hear something.
They can give us a sign.
While they indicate it's a knock, it sounds like a loud grunt to me. Later, as they continue walking, footsteps are heard beside them, or nearby that seem out of place with their own. Next, they hear something off-screen. As they continue on, one viewer claims to see a figure in the window at this point. Look up and to the right.
Take here some more investigation.
While I do see the shadow, I think it's just the wall jutting out, although it does look a bit like a figure. I think this shadow can be explained, but the subtle footsteps and other noises are harder to pinpoint. This place definitely gives me the creeps. A YouTuber named Alone in the Dark takes a 2-hour tour of a haunted hospital that has been out of commission for a long time. He repeatedly hears noises and gets signs that he is not alone, like here for example, when you can see a light appear out of nowhere in response to his voice.
Seems to hear ringing.
At one point on an upper floor, he finds a long streak of dried red liquid running down the wall from a nearby ceiling vent. It almost looks like someone was grabbed from above by something terribly strong and pulled up into the ventilation duct, where they met a horrible fate.
Looks like blood.
Something else strange about this video is how all of the cabinet doors that he passes by seem to be flung open. Cabinets opening by themselves is a classic sign of a haunting, so take that for what you will. When he is finally ready to leave, the paranormal events really pick up in ways you'll never guess.
There's a lot more going on in this thing.
First, he hears an ambulance pull up to the Defunct hospital, and then he sees shimmering lights on the ground. It could just be broken glass reflecting into the beam of his flashlight, but then again, it could be a paranormal energy signature. Either way, the timing of the ambulance siren is too much of a coincidence for me to believe this was anything normal. YouTuber Don John Averon claims to have captured an unknown humanoid on tape while deep in the woods in 2016. But without more information or evidence, little can be verified in regards to this video's authenticity. But if it's real, then this chilling footage shows Don silently creeping up on an ape-like creature that has tiny legs and a hunched over upper body. The humanoid does not seem to notice him as it casually swings its massive arms while walking. It moves like a human, but apparently has giant sloth-like arms with no fingers. It retreats deeper into the forest and Don doesn't follow. Some scary videos just stay with you. So much so that you wish you'd never seen them in the first place. This video comes from Ghost Crusaders, published to YouTube in April of 2020. This episode explores the haunted Letchworth Village, the crew's very first haunted location, which they investigated in 2014. Located in Rockland County, New York, in a 1921 report, over half of the residents in Letchworth were youth. 328 of the 506 patients, ranging from the age of 0 to 16. This fact may contribute to the negative energy in the village, as many Letchworth staff said a scarcity in necessary supplies, as well as food and water. Letchworth's conditions were exposed through photographs and media investigations, and although reforms were made in the 1970s due to public pressure, Letchworth permanently closed in 1996. Since then, the complex has fallen into decay. Everything remains how it was left, instantly abandoned. The Ghost Crusaders explores this institution and all its appalling history. The crew notes in the comments, while using an SB11 spirit box, I never thought I captured any EVPs. It wasn't until reviewing the footage for this episode that I heard the voice, and yes, I can hear other voices like multiple people talking, which I do say at one point, but I edited out for timing, but I can't make out what they are saying.
If anybody's in here, I don't know.
At one point, the EVP captures a voice saying,
So something comes through, they stick me around it. So it's not positive they can interfere. So something comes through, they stick me around it.
A moment later, the voice pleads, "Please don't hurt me." Later, when they are in the bathroom, a voice, potentially from a phantom orderly of the hospital, tells them to sit, as if directing them to do their business on the toilet.
That was a girl's voice. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Some of the EVPs mentioned are not very clear, but the female scream that's heard through the spirit box at one point is definitely frightening. Later, their cameras run out of battery, and while they're changing the batteries, the audio of the EVP is still captured. A voice says, "Leave me alone." At the same time, the investigator who heard the voice in real time, Dan, says he felt a cold breeze on the back of his neck, and he felt someone was standing behind them, whispering into his ear, "Would you have the stomach to visit Letchworth Village? Neither would we." YouTuber Hassan Barbar is used to encountering mysterious and paranormal anomalies. When he enters a room of this abandoned place, something is hiding beneath the covers.
شو يقولوا انه بني ادم ولا ايه؟ يقولوا انه بني ادم اخوان ولا ايش؟ طب اسمع، طب كيف اخذت لي حرقه من جوا؟ طب احكي معي، انت احكي.
The figure is rocking and moaning, and Hassan gets closer to investigate. As he approaches, he senses something else behind him.
بسم الله بسم الله. عارف.
And still, he gets closer. After finding the figure has disappeared, Hassan continues to investigate the rest of the home, and something starts to bark at him.
طب اظهر قلب قرد هي. طب انتوا كم واحد هون؟ كم؟
The thing continues to taunt him.
بسم الله. طب اظهر لي.
Then things grow even more active.
طب شو اسمك انت يا قرد؟ شو اسمك؟ ايه؟ اسمك؟
But as to what is making that noise, it never becomes clear. While a lot of this video is mysterious, this cut makes me skeptical.
بسم الله الرحمن.
Clearly, there was a cut in the video there, so I assume whatever form was beneath the blanket could escape. Still, I really enjoy the disturbing atmosphere of this investigation. While exploring a spooky abandoned cellar, these ghost hunters face something more fearsome than ghosts. Published by Scary Labs in August of 2021, this scary video shows the crew investigating several dark bricked rooms. The cameraman scans one room that appears to be empty, then he turns to his colleague, who is directing her camera toward another room, asking the spirits to come forward. When the spirits refuse to answer, the cameraman turns back toward the previously empty room, only it's not empty anymore. Black cloak, black hair, pale skin. What was this thing? I'm guessing Professor Snape, but the crew didn't stick around long enough to find out. Ghost hunting expert Stephen Lancaster leads a paranormal investigation in an attic that's believed to be haunted. Voices and footsteps are said to be heard ever since a previous owner lost their life up here. After setting up paranormal surveillance equipment, Stephen waits for a while and hears scary noises. I definitely heard something in the corner just a few feet away from Stephen. Here's what he has to say. I think he's telling the truth, but let me know if you detect any giveaways in his voice.
Somebody was walking around. Somebody whispered something to me.
A YouTuber in India named Ghost Live Raja has caught on livestream what he claims is real paranormal evidence while exploring an abandoned building known only as the Ghost House. He burns a candle to invoke the spirit world, and soon some pretty creepy moments are caught on livestream that he hasn't been able to explain.
Hey, no sound in it.
The sound is coming from the other side of the blue door, but when they open it, nothing but forest overgrowth is on the other side, or at least that's what I thought until I saw what appears to be a figure, half concealed, looking right at them at 6 minutes and 10 seconds, there for a moment and then mysteriously gone.
உங்களுக்கு தில் இருந்தா வந்து எங்களை என்ன அடிக்க முடியுமா? எங்க ரெண்டு பேர்த்துல யாரோ ஒருத்தர் அடி பார்க்கலாம் வந்து. அவ்வளவு தில் இருந்துச்சுடா.
This still image taken at that same time better illustrates what I mean. A strange figure with a black hood covering a bony, smirking face. Outside he finds this strange triangular formation that he calls a ghost warning. I think he might be talking about witchcraft, but I'm not sure what he means, so fill me in if you know more. He also comes across this pile of raised earth and rubble with a cross planted at the top. Something tells me this is the source of the activity. Whatever or whoever is buried under this rock pile is probably responsible for haunting the house. A YouTuber named Suspect Sky and his wife are convinced that something is waiting for them. Inside of their small closet, Suspect Sky slowly walks up to the closet and flings the door open, prepared for conflict, only to find nothing inside. They are relieved for just a moment and then decide to get out of the house anyway. Something is still in there waiting for them. They think they can feel its presence and just want to leave as fast as they can. And when they looked at the video again later, they found out they were absolutely correct. This bike rider is about to get ghosted. Published by Scary Desk in February of 2022, a man on a motorbike stops in the middle of the road and he's looking down the street at something. A pedestrian also stops nearby and he seems to be looking at the same thing, which so far is off screen. After the pedestrian leaves, we see this. A shadow figure walks determinedly at the dude on the motorbike. As he gets closer, he disappears for a moment, but the man deliberately pushes his bike over as if to make a blockade between them and then runs off. The shadow figure suddenly reappears, and he surprisingly runs off too in the opposite direction. What is going on with this confrontation? It looks like the shadow was as afraid of the encounter as these guys were. Roofers in Miami, Florida have a creepy encounter with some scary creatures hiding among us. One of them removes his shingle and has only seconds to get away from these creepy creatures of the night caught on camera. After some more investigating, they discovered to their horror that the bats are not coming from a hole in the house, but are rather nestled under each shingle by the dozens. Suddenly, the removal job has become a lot more complicated and beyond creepy, as they have to pry open each area without getting in the way of awakening bats. At 8 minutes and 15 seconds, bats are flying into this guy's face and threatening to knock him off balance. Eventually, it looks like they've gotten rid of them all, but just knowing that I'm one shingle away from a face full of bats would probably be scary enough to make me find another company to work for, and possibly another career altogether. This Redditor and their sister have experienced some paranormal happenings in their home. This is the first activity they've ever caught on video. Keep an eye on the drawer in the corner. The drawer slowly but surely opens, leaving the pair to wonder what this ghost is looking for. Redditors have some ideas. A number of Redditors suggest that it could be opening due to subtle vibration, or the cabinet not being installed level leading to imbalance. Unless there's further evidence of paranormal activity, I think this may be the case in this instance, but if I'm being honest, I'd rather it be a ghost looking for a potato peeler. A paranormal team led by Derek Reese sits around the old family room of a haunted house in an undisclosed location. One of them must be sensitive to spirits because he asks them if they feel anything, and maybe he accidentally channels something into the room.
Oh my god, don't mess with my face. No, I'm not.
You can see everyone except for one person when the knock happens, but her hands are in her lap under a pillow, so no, it's not her. Later on, they are looking at old videos when two visual artifacts appear. One is pink and one is green, and neither of them will go away no matter what they try. And that's when they hear creepy singing and a deep voice say something like, "Get away from the door." The audio is pretty low quality, but what do you hear? Ohm Vlogs has set up a camera at this junction in the middle of the night. What he sees there calls up plenty of questions, and they're without answers. First, he sees this figure walking across the grounds.
मैंने मुड़ा, ये पेड़ के पास, हाँ ये पेड़ के पास, ये देखो, ये कोई लगा मुझे, पता नहीं उस पेड़ के पास करके,
He then sees this figure in red. It's not clear if it's the same person in the security footage. It looks like he lights a candle, maybe for prayer or some other ritual. But it's when this next figure enters the picture that things get really creepy.
हाँ ये देखो ये कोई आया है, ये औरत है, ये कोई, और हाथ में आग है, आग ऊपर भाई आग जला रखी है हाथ पे.
After a while, she sits on the ground with her flame.
ये चौक पे घूम रही है, हाथ नहीं जल रहा है इसको बिल्कुल भी, और इसने आग को नीचे रखा, हाथ को नीचे रखा इसने, आग को नीचे रखा इसने.
When the witch leaves, he heads over to check out what she was burning, and then he finds her.
और ये पता नहीं कुछ करके, अरे यार मौज आ रही है.
Later, the camera captures her again crossing the same junction. And he finds this burning. The vlogger thinks this is a witch performing some type of ritual. I agree that he's probably right. I can't find any other explanation for her movements at night. I'm not sure what she's doing exactly, whether it's good or evil, but I do find it fascinating.